Hello.
Hello. Hi, Anne-Marie. Hi, Aaron. Thanks for joining. I was planning to ping you, Anne-Marie, on Slack because I included your PRs in the under one of topics to make sure we work with your documents rather than us creating our own document.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I can make it to the first half hour of this.
Yeah, it may be a short meeting because this is the first meeting to just get the conversation going. We'll probably hit that topic before you leave.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, let me start sharing my screen to make sure things work. So you can see this HackMD document, I hope, with the agenda.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Hi, Maxim. Thanks for joining. So if you have permission to write to the document, or if you signed into HackMD, if you could type in your name with your affiliation, that would be great. And let me put the link to chat as well, if I can find it. Okay, there. Hi, Terry, Yora, thanks for joining.
Sure. Just let me know what I need to do. I'm new to those technicalities.
Yeah, it's just getting started slowly. It's like we typically capture, like record our attendance on HackMD document. So
Okay.
we know who is here and so on. And then perhaps we can start slowly with going through the agenda. Hi, Tracy. Thanks for joining. And Georg, it's cool. Many of you here.
Hi.
So, as I was saying, this is the very first meeting for the SIG. So welcome everyone. And here is the agenda, and we have a few slides to get the conversation started. But before we move to slides, perhaps we can walk through the agenda, and please feel free to add any topic you want to discuss. So the first topic is welcome and introductions, and then we can talk about what is special interest group software supply chain and why, because we had received a few comments about the SIG when we proposed it first time. So we can talk about why we have this SIG and what we intend to do with the SIG, and the approach we could take within the SIG based on how the other SIGs within CD Foundation is operating. And then reminder about the logistics. Seeing you all here is great, because then logistics part seems to have worked, because you found the meeting document and the Zoom link and so on. And then talking about the roadmap we could perhaps start working on, and I stole this from Tracy Miranda, who did the roadmap for the SIG interval last year, like the approach about how we can create the roadmap for the SIG. Few initial topics for the SIG roadmap, and perhaps what we are going to do within the SIG. And knowledge transfer is one of the key things which work pretty well with SIG interoperability and other SIGs, by getting people from different communities, projects presenting to the SIG to increase awareness and knowledge about other initiatives going on the other communities. topic about next meeting of the SIG, because it falls between this summer time change, which always causes some kind of confusion and hassle, and then open discussion. So that is the topic for the day. And if you have other topics in your mind, please feel free to add them directly to the document. So let's start. So welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for joining the SIG and joining the meeting. And perhaps it would be good to know who we are, who is here, and what we are dealing with day to day, both as part of our organizations or within the communities we are engaged in. And perhaps I can start and then continue with the people I see in the meeting call based on what I see on my screen. So I'm on top of the list. I go ahead first. So my name is Fatih Dermanci and I work for Software Technology as a developer, contributing in infrastructure automation, CI/CD, DevOps topics. I also contribute to CD Foundation and other communities, taking part in different special interest groups, such as special interest group interoperability. And here to contribute to improving the state of software supply chain within CD Foundation and elsewhere. And that's me. So the next person I see in the list, Zoom list, is Terry. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am here because I'm interested in making sure that we keep aligned across the various special interest groups we've got going at the moment, and that we start to develop this subject in the best practices work that we're doing.
Thanks, Terry. And Arhan, I see you next.
Yeah. Hello there. So this is Arhan. I work for Storebrand. Many of you may not know the company. It's one of the biggest banks in Norway. I have a background in developments and software supply chains, but for the past 6 years, I've been working with public cloud. So I thought I can contribute to this group around cloud topics and so on. So I'm looking forward to start and see how it goes here. The next person, I'm passing it to Anne-Marie.
Hey, yeah, I'm Anne-Marie Fred from Red Hat, and I'm an architect in the developer tools group there. And one of the things we're working on now are some exemplary pipelines to help customers adopt DevSecOps. And I also have a background for the past few years of doing DevSecOps implementation at IBM using continuous delivery. So hoping to keep us in sync with what other people are doing.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. I see Ankit.
Hi, can you, okay, I think you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I work as a DevOps at the Adexai. I also contribute to the Jenkins X in my free time. So I would like to understand what is going on here, and hopefully we can add something to, like Jenkins X, which would help users of it. So yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Ankit. And Georg, you are next.
Yeah, hi everybody. General, I'm new to CDF, but I've been contributing to, or I've been around various other communities, OpenStack, a couple of telco-specific open source communities, like Linux Foundation Networking, and I'm also working at Ericsson, so kind of a colleague of Fatih. Currently, I'm focusing mostly on OpenSSF, thinking about what we will do in OpenSSF from a company perspective. And obviously there are connections to this SIG, and I'd like to make use that, like we have good alignment and basically make use of, for instance, OpenSSF results in this SIG, put then concepts and so on to the test, and ideally feedback results, our experiences with these things back to the corresponding OpenSSF working groups and projects and so on. So that's my intention.
Thanks, Georg. And I see Kara next.
Hi all, I'm Cora de la Marque. I work at the CDF as an ecosystem advocate, and I'm co-chair of the interoperability SIG, which Fatih was also an amazing, fantastic, wonderful co-chair of. And really excited to be joining you all today for this. I think this is a great initiative and fantastic to bring it to the CDF. So thank you, Fatih. And I'll just give a pitch for the interoperability SIG because you all might very well be interested. Melissa McKay is our new co-chair. She's going to be amazing. And we have had really interesting discussions from Anne-Marie Fred recently on pipeline steps, stages, and we're also discussing different sort of guards within CI/CD pipeline. So do join us. We're on the CDF calendar.
Thanks, Kara. Yora?
Thank you. So I'm Leora, I'm from Red Hat. I'm a product owner in the Rivos organization, part of RHEL, which is the Red Hat in-vehicle operating system. I'm responsible to build the supply chain for the product. The product doesn't exist yet. It's just in the making, in the oven, as we say. The architecture of the supply chain is currently based on OpenShift, which is Kubernetes. We are using Tekton as our orchestrator, pipelines orchestrator, and all kinds of new tooling that we are investigating in order to have like something more reliable, more K8 native, and probably to introduce some more innovation in our supply chains. So that's what I'm doing in the past 4 years at Red Hat. Thank you.
Thanks, Leora. You've forgotten that Leora is co-chair for the SIG as well. So just to highlight that.
I was trusting you, Fatih, to say that. So.
Thanks for being in this. Like, it's not an easy, effort, especially in this area. But thanks a lot, Leora. And I see Maxime. Hi, Maxime.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, I'm Maxime. I work at Elastic for 4 years now. I'm leading the Stack release team, and we started using Tekton 4 years ago when it was Knative build. I did a demo yesterday at the Tekton working group, if you want to know more about how we are using it at Elastic. And I'm looking forward to do more with Tekton and to use Sigstore to sign our container images and so on.
Thanks, Maxime. Welcome. And Melissa?
Hi, I'm Melissa McKay. And first of all, I see some crossover with some folks in the SIG interoperability group, which is pretty exciting. I'm co-chair along with Kara on that group. So nice to see you here as well. I chose to be the CDF's Technical Oversight Committee sponsor for this group. Excited to see where it goes. I currently am employed by JFrog. I've been a developer advocate with them for 2 years now. Prior to that, I was a developer involved in various different projects, all the way from intern to principal engineer on different things. So my focus a lot has been on community in the past. Making sure that we get our conversations out there with the actual developer. So I definitely approach things closer to that end of the spectrum. As far as supply chain, I have both a professional and personal interest in that, just with my own experiences that I've had in the past, and also just the fact that a lot of our commercial products like to integrate with open source tools, and we want to make sure that we leave that door open for the community as well. So thank you, Fatih, for putting this group together, because I'm really excited what we come out with.
Thanks. And Tracy.
Yeah. First of all, well said, Melissa. I don't want to go after you. But hi, everybody. I'm Tracy. I used to work at the CDF, but as of earlier this year, I joined a startup called ChainGuard, which focuses on supply chain security, particularly for cloud and container-based technology. And there I do a lot of work with open source projects, and in particular, just getting up to speed with the SIG store project.
Thanks, Tracy. So welcome again. I'm really excited to see all of you here. So let's see what we can achieve within the SIG. So as I noted at the beginning, we have a few slides to get the conversation going. Perhaps understand like why this SIG exists and how we can contribute to overall efforts to this chain. And like we didn't call out within the SIG chapter or within the SIG name, and that was a conscious decision because there are many other topics that help us to improve the state of software supply chain, and security is one of them, perhaps one of the most critical ones, but there are a few other topics. And this slide attempts to, give a high level overview of what this SIG is and why this SIG exists. And just to make sure I'm not going to do like a presentation here, it's just, get the conversation started. So if any of you have any comments or ideas about the SIG itself, what we can do with it, please just speak up and we can talk about those things as well. So the SIG software supply chain, as Terry highlighted, like I think this SIG actually originates from special interest group interoperability, like some other SIGs like SIG events, because since the SIG interoperability was formed about 2 years ago, we start talking about general interoperability topics, and we start focusing on different topics such as events and standardized metadata and others. And over time, like many other people on this planet, we start talking about software supply chain aspects as well. And that kind of made us realize that maybe we should take a more focused approach to software supply chain because the topic is critical. Many other communities, organizations, including government organizations, are talking about this topic. And within CD Foundation, we don't have a group that looks after this topic specifically. In the past, we had a special interest group called Special Interest Group Security, and that group has been archived. And again, there is no group looking at this topic, and it was like discussed under best practices and interoperability. And that kind of makes it difficult to, focus on various topics within supply chain topic. That's why we went and proposed this SIG together with others, including Liora, for example, to see if we have interest to take this topic forward under its own special interest group. So it's kind of SIG interoperability result in 2 special interest groups, events being first and this SIG being the second. And the purpose of the SIG is to contribute to efforts to improve the state of software supply chain, collaborate with other communities, and contribute to broader efforts from CI/CD perspective. I think this is key because like CI/CD is a critical topic for any organization community out there. And as I mentioned to Tracy in the past, like a month ago, seeing OpenSSF formation was pretty good, but I missed the call out to CI/CD in the first blog post OpenSSF published and this diagram, because various stages within the technical pipeline was highlighted there, but CI/CD wasn't called out. And that gave me the urge, okay, we need to do something here to make sure that CI/CD aspects are not missed when different organizations, communities talk about software supply chain. And that's kind of how this idea to form the SIG came to life first time. And the other reason is that everyone talks about improving the state of software supply chain, but the focus on the CI/CD ecosystem itself or the production systems in general, it's not there. You know, we must secure the projects we are developing. We must secure the products we are developing. But what about actual systems that help us to bring those things to life? Those are software systems that are like Tecton, Jenkins, Jenkins X, Spinnaker, and others. What about securing the actual CI/CD systems themselves? So this could be another topic this SIG could contribute, because we are all practitioners, CI/CD practitioners, and we could help other communities from this perspective as well. So this makes two high-level topics, looking at the software supply chain from CI/CD perspective, plus looking at CI/CD systems themselves and improving them to help us with, you know, securing or making sure our systems are compliant, secure, and so on. And the other aspects highlighted is like contribution. Again, going back to Terry, what you just said, we need to make sure that we don't duplicate efforts. Like if we identify something, if another group is working on that topic, such as special interest group interoperability within CD Foundation or OpenSSF, we should look for synergies to collaborate across different communities, different groups. So we go there and contribute those efforts rather than us trying to do things ourselves alone. And finally, as I mentioned, we had a special interest group security, and we need to look at the work they have done there and perhaps incorporate that work to our group's work going forward. So that is what is special interest software supply chain and why. And I want to stop here and give all of you a chance to, you know, share your thoughts around the SIG. And if you, you know, have additional ideas or disagree with any of the things written on this slide.
I'd just like to remind everybody that we should be thinking not just about conventional software delivery, but also machine learning and ML ops, because you know, we're looking at a future where we need an integrated supply chain for both of those capabilities.
I also would like to add, there is now everybody is talking about cloud native, and the actually developers are responsible for creating their own infrastructure using infrastructure as code and so on. So that is, I think, one thing that we can also consider here. Cloud native aspects, how it integrates with software supply chains, and how to secure that maybe in the long term.
Could we just generate a discussion over the topics that you're raising? Because I'm very interested, for instance, Terry, what you've mentioned about the integrating MLOps into the supply chain. What did you have in mind when you, like, what is the, and I'm not saying that there is no connection, but I'm just interested to understand, like, where do you see that fits together?
So this is something that we cover in the MLOps roadmap, which is my other hat within CDF. But basically, what we're expecting to see over the next few years is a large movement away from traditional software delivery and into a lot more use of machine learning assets across all fields. But those assets do not live in isolation. They're part of a product, and that product includes traditional and machine learning. So when we talk about the software supply chain, we need to be looking forwards and understanding that that supply chain is actually going to be a combination of conventional and machine learning based assets and dependencies, and that we've got a big challenge ahead of us over the next few years to better integrate our capabilities. Now we've tried to do some example work with Jenkins X to show how you can incorporate those things within a standard pipeline, but it's probably worth taking a glance at the roadmap and understanding some of the key challenges in there, because I think that will reveal some aspects of the supply chain that are not necessarily obvious from a conventional DevOps perspective.
I'm trying to understand, like, I'm going to simple use cases with your permission, just to figure out like what you're trying to explain here. So let's, for instance, we have a supply chain, a pipeline that is required to build 100 artifacts, okay, and do something and test, of course, deploy them and test them and so forth. And do you think that we can use ML ops in order to connect into the supply chain so it knows that it doesn't need to build all the 1,000 artifacts, but only 3 of those?
No. Okay, I think you're confusing this with AI ops.
Okay.
So AI ops is when you apply machine learning to your conventional pipelines to optimize the pipelines. ML ops is DevOps extended to include machine learning. So it's the pipelines that you need to build to actually train and deploy your machine learning assets in the same environments that you're deploying your conventional assets. So it's taking the CI/CD pipeline and extending it to include all of the machine learning training and production deployment that you're doing.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Yura. It looks like this is a potential topic which I missed including in potential topic slide. So thanks for bringing this up. So any other comments or ideas, questions?
I'm personally interested in how to build new supply chains that are based on cloud native, like, in cloud native. I think that Arhan mentioned that, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
just
right.
replicating what you've said before. I think this is a major interest of mine right now, and of course, for my project, but I think that it might interest others as well. What kind of tooling to use, how to connect the bits connect the dots between the various tools. We have a lot of challenges in our team with the tooling, the open source tooling that are currently out there. Maybe there are other tools that provide a better way, better approach, and to be like a place where we can brainstorm together and to help each other to take decisions on which approach to take. That's what I would like to get out of the SIG as well. I don't know if it's like, the main target, but maybe as a on the way target.
I think this is like one of the reasons why SIG exists. Probably, like, at least that's what I like about SIG. Like, you come together and then brainstorm about different topics without, limited to what exists, speculate and dream.
So one thing I was going to add just to that point, there is a really excellent white paper the CNCF put out in this area around kind of cloud native technologies and security. And building on that paper, some folks at Citi and a few others, well, actually Citi plus some folks in CNCF are putting together a reference architecture. And there's a project called the Secure Supply Factory, which is, I recommend checking out, or maybe we can even get the Citi folks to come and demo it, because I think takes you down that route quite nicely.
I just got confirmation from Michael from Secure Software Factory to join one of the upcoming meetings just half an hour ago. So he will come present and demo what they've done.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. So, but thanks for the highlight, Tracy. Okay. Anyone else? And just moving, I think this, yeah, this is the paper you mentioned, I think, Tracy, this tax security software supply chain best practices. And I put the links to Secure Software Factory website, GitHub, and RFC, which is still open, I think. So you can go there and comment, ask questions, and all those things. Okay. So yeah,
one other thing that I'll just mention, in a parallel existence, I also work on the IRDS roadmap, which is the IEEE roadmap for the semiconductor industry, and I'm involved in the factory integration and supply chain chapters of that roadmap. So there is a lot of interest in supply chain in general at the moment, but specifically software and data supply chains and managing the flow of information in very, very large, very high value organizations. So I think it's important that we make sure that we're crossing over in this work into other industries and understanding what the end customer is concerned about and what implications there are when you start to look at real world examples.
Do you have a link to the work you mentioned, public link, Terry, if you could put it to chat?
So it's just IRDS-IEEE.org.
IRDS, is it the right thing? Is this the one?
That's the one, yeah.
Okay, let me capture this in the slides and I can do it in minutes later on. Okay. So anyone else, any other ideas? I think these are all great ideas. We are already creating our roadmap here, topics to look at.
I would just add that for improving the security of the individual CI/CD tools themselves, especially the ones that are part of the CDF, this is an important area of work for the CDF, and we should definitely have them involved. You know, project leads from the various tools be involved with the SIG and liaise with them.
Yes, that's a great idea, Kara. I think we need to identify who may be interested. We can just go out to their Slacks or ask if anyone wants to take part in this, because we will be talking about the things that is important for the projects. Yes. Okay. So if no other idea, obviously this is not the first time we'll be talking about these things, but it's good that everyone can, you know, bring up ideas they have right at the very beginning.
Yeah, one other suggestion. Yeah, so related to the best practices work, there's the SIG looking at putting together best practices for continuous delivery, and one aspect of that will be supply chain security. I think the SALSA model from OpenSSF is a really good capability model, but one place where maybe we could add value is looking at that model and applying it to various open source tools. So like sort of highlighting what features of the tools let you get to which SALSA level. Like I've heard, you know, maybe you can't use GitHub Actions to get to SALSA level 4 because it doesn't support build step attestations. So helping people kind of map build tools to SALSA levels, I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah, to your point, Tracy, I think the SALSA levels are driving a lot of customer interest in supply chain. Like they're trying to obtain higher levels than they have right now. And yeah, exactly. They're looking at things like tecton chains and tecton results and things like that to try to accomplish these things.
Yeah, for what it's worth, and on Tecton side, we have a new working group that we started like a month ago, and we are focusing on this. So both saying what kind of features do we need in Tecton to make our users able to be compliant with SALSA, as well as making Tecton itself compliant with SALSA levels. So making sure that we build Tecton and release Tecton itself in a way that is SALSA compliant. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Tracy and Marie, Andrea. So how we can do this and other things perhaps, and again, this is like an open conversation just to, talking about some ideas we had when we start thinking about the SIG. So within SIG Special Interest Group Interoperability, we didn't have too much opportunity to take a practice-oriented approach, but then Special Interest Group events took a practice-oriented approach by directly bringing up a proof of concept, which I like a lot because talking about concepts and taking discussions, yes, they are very valuable, but if you see something for real and play with it yourself by bringing a simple talk up and running, gets you to topic even better and understand what is happening and perhaps contribute back much easier. So this is again stolen from how Special Interest Group events approach to their work. And one of the key things for this could perhaps be taking a practice-oriented approach and establish proof of concepts by using open source technologies, like some of them are referred here already, like Secure Software Factory, which uses Tecton CD, projects such as Tecton CD pipelines, Tecton CD chains, as well as SIG Store, and many other cool technologies to see how such software supply chains established. So this is kind of a proposal to the SIG to, think about what kind of proof of concept we want to have, and what kind of pipelines we could establish, what kind of pipeline stages we should have to try it out to improve the security of our software supply chain, or be compliant and so on. So this is one of the things, in addition to having conversations or having brainstorming around current or future topics, and to play with things, to get form our own thinking about different activities, initiatives, and projects. And the other approach is like collaboration. Again, many groups, many projects are looking at these aspects, like software supply chain aspects, and it is critical that we reach out to those groups, take part in those conversations, invite people from those groups and projects to our SIG to find out how we can work together. And Kara already mentioned, like, we should reach out to member projects within CD Foundation, like Jenkins X, Tecton, Spinnaker, and so on. We should also reach out to other communities like OpenSSF to see what they are doing and invite them to our group to talk about what they are doing there. Because if you look at OpenSSF, there is a work group called their security tooling work group, I think, or software supply chain integrity, and they are all related to what we will be discussing within this SIG. So the collaboration is another key aspect we could perhaps take into account when we work with the SIG, in addition to what we discussed, like brainstorming. So does this make sense to you? Like, having talks to play with?
Yeah, as I already mentioned, I think in my introduction, that's exactly what I'd be interested in. And as also was mentioned before, it only like experience allows you to kind of give good feedback to to those other projects, and they might value if we put things into practice and try them in different combination and contexts, so that they also get feedback in terms of the concepts actually make sense and work in practice and so on. So yeah, again, mainly with an OpenSSF focus from my side.
So there's one thing that I think might be helpful to flag out here, and that is that open source software supply chain is a special case of the overall supply chain problem space. And that's probably going to be quite significant to what we're doing, because there are a lot of things that we'll be thinking about that we can propose that will work effectively in a fully open source supply chain, but which won't work in a commercial environment. And so we'll probably need to keep reminding ourselves that there's a bigger challenge where you start to come across supply chain relationships between commercial entities where the things that they're sharing have an intellectual property perspective, and there's a commercial reason to avoid doing some of the things that would naturally optimize a supply chain for a single goal like security. So we'll probably need to keep thinking about some of these challenges and look at how we can help to contribute in those areas, because actually this is one of the biggest challenges I'm working with at the moment in other fields, is that some of the biggest problems in technology today are due to the fact that it's very hard to manage your overall supply chain when you've got lots and lots of nested suppliers, each with their own proprietary IP that they're trying to defend. And therefore you can't get easy access to the full picture of all the activity that's going on in your full supply chain because nobody wants to share. So in the IRDS roadmap, we've identified the need for a set of standards for commercial data sharing and information sharing and information processing sharing that can span across multiple organizations while addressing the individual concerns about protecting IP and not leaking data and all the rest of this stuff. So there's a huge multi-trillion-dollar problem in that space, and I would hope that we can contribute to that in some way.
Yeah.
That feels a little out of scope, just like from an open source community perspective.
Well, it depends. I mean, the people who are using the open source are the people who work for those organizations. And so if we're going to continue to make relevant tools and define relevant best practice, we need to understand the needs and concerns of those end customers, or else we'll only be building tools that are relevant to other open source projects, but we'll drift slowly away from mainstream relevance.
Yeah, I think my perspective is like most companies are basing a lot of their infrastructure on open source anyway, and they need those specific solutions to manage the open source supply chains. And that's a huge enough challenge in itself. And any solutions that come up there will, probably have a reasonable kind of transference to other areas. Like even take something like SALSA levels, you can apply that to open source projects or proprietary. But I think trying to specifically solve problems between proprietary data and things is, it's I don't know, it just feels beyond scope of what we can do as a group.
Well, I think it's certainly something that we need to be aware of, because it is the largest challenge in that space. And so if we want to define best practice in that area, we can't ignore it. We have to at the very least be able to explain why you can't use our solutions under those circumstances.
Okay. So I guess this going back to SIG approach, practice-oriented approach, and collaboration. Got some, support. So I think we need to sort out some environment details about, or infrastructure details about the potential POC we will be bringing, but we first need to identify what we should base our POC on. So we'll talk about this topic once we, look at some of the projects referred to during the previous conversations, and then talk about how to start. We could perhaps get support from CD Foundation for infrastructure. So the next topic is logistics. Again, this is kind of a reminder of what is listed on the meeting document. So we have the GitHub repository available under CD Foundation organization, and it is currently pretty empty because it's new. But just the goals, like the README, which was like something we already took a look when we proposed the SIG, and this needs to be updated with the logistics and so on. And we have two documents here. One of them is this meetings.md, and the other one is presentations.md. Meetings.md is the document we are editing on HackMD, which we will include your names. And we use HackMD for collaborative editing, and these documents are not directly updated within Git repos. HackMD pushes them there. And the other document is presentations.md, which we will talk about when we come to knowledge sharing document. We have a Slack channel for day-to-day communication. So if you are not there, you can perhaps join there, and then we don't have to wait meetings for discussing things, especially if we start with working on POC, then it may be easier to communicate on Slack on a daily basis. We got a mail list for ourselves, and this mail list, it will probably be a low traffic, but we will be sending meeting agenda, meeting minutes, and anything that requires some attention. And we can also have conversations using mail list as well. So please subscribe to the mail list on groups.io. CD Foundation. And if you go there, this is the mail list, and I just did some hello world mail there, sent the agenda there, so you can get notifications. Additionally, we will send the meeting invites to this mail list. So if you want to get the meeting invites for the SIG in your mailbox, you will get them if you subscribe to the mail list as well. And yeah, SIG meetings, we will be meeting every second and fourth Thursday of each month. During winter time, the meetings take place at 4 p.m. UTC, and in summer times, which will basically start during end of this month, we'll switch to 3 p.m. UTC, which will keep the meeting time same for our own time zones. 1 hour earlier to UTC helps us keeping the usual time for our own time zones. And we are meeting on Zoom at the moment, but CDF is working on looking at Baby for community meetings, and depending on how things go with Baby, we may switch to Baby, but you will hear about the change if it happens in advance, so you can prepare yourself for it. And SIG meeting agenda minutes, that is the document, this document we have been looking. And then the other good link is CD Foundation public calendar, because you can see all the meetings at one place by using this link. And you can also subscribe to this calendar, so you can see meeting invites directly on your Google Calendar, for example. As you see, we have interoperability, events, best practices, technical site committee, ambassador, Chinese localization, all the meetings listed here, and you can join the meetings of other SIGs as well. And that was the last info about logistics. I guess this is simple enough. So moving to the roadmap. And this is what I stole from what Tracy did for interoperable SIG. I think this approach to roadmap, like looking at current topics, writing down some near-term topics and adding some future topics, served SIG interoperability pretty well. And this is a proposed approach to creating roadmap. Obviously, we don't have to follow this, but this is a practice we followed in the past. And then taking this approach, we can perhaps start populating some of the earlier initial topics we may want to look at within our SIG. And again, taking example from special interest group interoperability, one of the things we have been following within the special interest group interoperability is to start transferring knowledge about different projects or initiatives. But this time we can perhaps look at technologies projects within software supply chain. And some of them are already mentioned, like Secure Software Factory, Tecton CD, chains, and so on. So this could be, one of the topics for our roadmap. So we start reaching out to other communities and, inviting them to our meetings. So we learn directly from the maintainers of those projects.
Identifying, what's valuable with road mapping is to make sure that you're capturing all of the challenges that you're identifying in the space that you're mapping out, and keep those separated from any technology requirements that come off the back of those challenges and any potential solutions that actually come off the back of the technology requirements. So it's useful to aggregate those three things and publish them, because it makes it very easy for people to quickly get a picture of all of the major challenges that exist in a problem space, and then see what technologies fall out the back of that, what things already exist, and what things are needed to be built in order to solve those problems. So there's an example with the MLOps roadmap. You can see how that's structured in those three phases, and how we start with the overview picture of all the challenges, and then we expand on the implications of those challenges and what we can and can't do off the back of them right now. And then you have the choice to actually maintain a timeline of what's possible right now, what we think is going to be possible in the near future, and what we're going to have to build towards in the longer term.
Thanks, Terry. I hope you can still hear me. My earphones battery died.
Yep.
So yeah, MLOps roadmap is a good reference to take a look. Okay, yeah, I think I put the roadmap link to chat already, the MLOps roadmap. I can include it here as well. Okay. By the way, the meetings are automatically recorded and they will be uploaded to YouTube. So if you missed any discussion, or if you want to, recap what we discussed, you can always go back to YouTube. They should become available. Recordings will become available in a few days' time under CD Foundation channel on YouTube. So some of the initial topics is like, again, terminology is a key thing. Like we face this everywhere when we talk about interoperability, we talk about events or other things. Terminology topic comes up always. So this could be a topic to start thinking about as near-term or current topic in our roadmap. Ingesting and handling materials open source, like introducing, storing, provisioning, consuming open source components, especially dependencies and so on, could be a topic. And since we are working with open source, it makes it even more sense to talk about these aspects. Source code analysis, scanning, like vulnerability license, malware scanning, artifact builds, more. And the other thing I want to highlight here is, unfortunately, Anne-Marie left. She started a really important and extensive work within special interest group interoperability, documenting like terminology for pipeline stages. And if you look at the document, you will notice she talks about some stages that are critical for software supply chain as well. So we could perhaps look at this document and see what of those stages we can start thinking and perhaps realizing within our POC, and perhaps go back to interoperability and contribute to that work directly there instead of us keeping our own terminology to ourselves. And she started parallel work to stages, and that work is about pipeline step types. And this work is also pretty extensive. And I suggest to take a look at that document from software supply chain perspective, perhaps, to see how we can contribute to that work. And the links are here. And the last item is establishing a proof of concept. And the proposal is in line with what Tracy suggested. We could perhaps take a look at the secure software factory, reference architecture, and also Potato Hat. This is an initiative from CNCF TAG app delivery, because secure software factory is looking at like when things start on SCM Git repo and when things hit production, and Potato Hat looks at how you roll things out to production and different deployment strategies. Like we can perhaps combine these two things over time to extend the supply chain even further. Because sometimes what some people mean with software supply chain differs from what others, some considers production part of software supply chain, because vulnerabilities may be disclosed for the things you are running in production. You may need to react to those disclosed vulnerabilities and upgrade your services running in production and vice versa. So again, everything you see on this slide and perhaps earlier slides, there are proposals, and we will talk more about these things if they are the right way to work with different topics or establish POCs. So sorry, I am getting a bit faster because we have 5 minutes left. And knowledge transfer. So as I mentioned, I already reached out to Michael, who is member of CNCF TAG Security, and he's one of the main people behind Secure Software Factory. Please correct me, Tracy, if I'm wrong. And he accepted to our invitation, and he will join one of the upcoming meetings to talk about Secure Software Factory, talk about what they are doing with their white paper, and perhaps do a demo. And that presentation and demo will take place beginning of April, because the fate of our next meeting is questionable because it falls in between these summertime changes. But yeah, we will send notification about that on Slack channel and mail list in advance, so you can adjust yourselves. And the other thing I've done, thanks to Andrea, is I reached out to Priya from Tecton CD, and she will she knows Tecton CD chains inside out, I think, and I will let you know when I hear back from her, so she can join and present Tecton CD chains and do a demo. And the other thing, Andrea, you mentioned, I think Tecton CD itself uses Tecton CD. I think, Andrea, maybe you want to clarify this. I'm getting confused. It is getting late here.
Yeah, so Priya knows Tecton chains very, very well. She's one of the maintainer and core developers, so looking forward to her presentation. In terms of Tecton CD, we sign Tecton releases through Tecton chains, if that's what you are referring to.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
so we like to dogfood Tecton and use Tecton to release Tech itself and sign our releases and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. And that is exactly the key things we can look in the SIG, like how to secure actual CI/CD technologies themselves. So yeah, once I hear back from her and we schedule we pin a date for that presentation, you will know when that will take place. And then we will reach out to CNCF TAG app delivery and invite them to one of our meetings so they can talk about what they are doing there and Potato initiative they have. In addition to project presentations, like any of us in this meeting or anyone joins later on, we are not limited to project presentations. Like if you have a topic you want to discuss, just add that topic to agenda and come and talk about it and hear what others think about that specific topic. And demos, yes, especially if we bring up a POC, we should be doing demos on a regular basis based on what we are running with the POC. And the last slide is references of all those things mentioned. Perhaps we can add more links here based on what we discussed. So we have 1 minute left. Anyone wants to say something? Sorry,
just
I took
quickly.
Yeah. Yes.
It strikes me that unlike some of the other work groups that we've got going on, this topic area is very heavily policy driven rather than developer driven. And so we probably need to think about our audience and make sure that we're phrasing things and documenting things in a way that clearly addresses the important decision makers in this field. So we need to be thinking about that bigger picture of who is actually interested in the open source licensing problem and what's the perspective that they need to understand, rather than get immediately too focused on the technical details of how to implement that in a given product. We'll need to make sure we're doing the right level of communication and pitching it in the right language.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for highlighting this, Terry. I think this is key. But yeah, perhaps we can add this as one of the topics we can start thinking about, like who are our decision makers and what kind of messaging we want to give. But yeah, so we are at the top of our, in order to respect everyone's time, I will shut up now. So again, welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for joining the very first meeting. And then we'll see where we end up over time. Hopefully we can contribute this effort happening everywhere and improve lives of ourselves, because this is about humans, us. So have a nice rest of your day and talk to you in perhaps 2 weeks or 4 weeks. We can take that discussion on the Slack. And bye for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, thanks.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
No, patrz tu. Patrz.